Hey everyone, welcome to a little tote tutorial. I'm going to show you how to sew a pretty basic tote, but it has an inside pocket, so that's a nice little addition. And this one's going to be 13 by 15, so it's on the smaller side. You're going to cut out 7 pieces total, and I'll have a little pattern document in this post, so you can check that out for like the basic measurements and all of that. There's going to be 2 bag pieces, 2 straps, 2 pieces of facing, and a piece for the inner pocket. So the first thing we're going to do is sew the front and the back pieces together. Make sure that your right sides are together. It's pretty clear in this video because the right sides have the like painting pattern on them. This tote is longer vertically, so the one unsewn side for the opening is going to be one of the 13-inch sides. So basically just sew up one of the 15-inch sides, then along the bottom 13-inch, and then up the other 15-inch side. And you're going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance for this. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and finish your seams. I didn't do it right away because I'm using my serger, but just go ahead and trim your seam allowance down to about 1/4 inch, and using a zigzag stitch, just finish them all the way around. Next up, you're going to take the piece for the inside pocket, and you're going to take one of the shorter edges of it and fold it inwards by about 1/2 inch. This doesn't have to be perfect though. Then you're just going to sew along that with a basic stitch. Now fold that pocket piece into a pocket shape. So wrong sides together, just sort of fold it in half, but leave about 1 inch on the top. This will be used to sew the pocket to the facing. Pin together and sew up both sides with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you can trim the seam allowance down and finish your seams. I'm using my serger for this as well as the seams of the tote. If you sew a lot, I would really recommend investing in a serger. It's not totally necessary, but it takes your time down by a lot and it just makes the seams look really clean. Next up is going to be the straps. So take one strap and fold it in half the short way, the long way. Iron that super well. Now, this next step is a little confusing, so watch the video carefully, but basically you'll be folding the long edges inward by about 1/4 inch. You'll do this on both sides of the strap. I hope this makes sense. It'll look something like this. Now, you'll fold the strap back in half again, and you'll see that the folded edges tuck in when you sew it up, so there will be no like raw edges showing. Do this for both of your straps, and then you can sew them up. Sew along that pinned edge as close as you can to the edge. I'd say leave about 1/8 inch showing, so that you definitely have the little tucked in edges sewn inside the strap. And you'll go up both sides of the strap so that it looks nice and clean. Now for the facing, you have 2 pieces that are 14 by 2. You're going to sew them together at the shorter ends with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, take this piece to the ironing board. With the wrong sides facing out, like facing you, fold inwards by 1/2 inch all the way around this ring of fabric. You can pin it if you want, but I find that ironing is enough for this. Now take your pocket, face the wrong sides of the facing outwards, and place the right side of the pocket against the facing. Place it around the middle of the facing. Leave about 1/4 inch gap between the opening of the pocket and the folded over edge of the facing. You're going to sew the pocket to the facing as close as you can get to the edge of the facing, about 1/4 inch. Make sure that the opening for the pocket is there. Now take your actual tote and lay it flat. You're gonna measure and mark 2 spots on each side. They're gonna be 3 inches from the edges of the tote, and this is where the straps are gonna go. You can mark at 3 inches and 4 inches. The strap is 1 inch wide and it will fit in between those 2 marks. Or you can just know that the strap will go on the inside, further away from the edge of that 3-inch mark. You can pin those in place, but you're going to be doing a bunch of pinning right after this, so you don't have to. Now grab your facing again, and with the right side of the facing facing inwards towards the right side of your tote, place it around the tote, lining up with the seams on each side. Pin this in place with the top edges of the tote lining up with the raw edges of the facing, the edges that aren't folded over. While you're pinning, make sure that your straps are in place and they're straight, and also make sure that they're not twisted around. It's super easy to mess up. Also, make sure that the pocket's opening is facing the tote, not facing you. If you can see the folded over edge of the facing and you can't see the pocket opening, you've done this right. Now sew the facing to the tote using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you don't need to cut off that seam allowance, but just cut some little snips into it all the way around, making sure that you don't cut over the seam that we just sewed. This is just going to make it easier to fold the facing inwards. I also like to cut out the bulk at the side seams. This isn't super necessary, but it'll make the next few steps a lot easier. Flip the tote inside out and take it over to the ironing board. You're gonna flip the facing so that it is inside the tote, with that nice clean edge and the pocket facing you. Iron it well and pin it in place. Now sew the facing down with about 1/8 of an inch to the left of the needle. Go all the way around, even over the part of the pocket that we already sewed. Now flip the tote right side out and sew a top stitching seam 1/8 of an inch away from the top of the tote. This will look really clean, help the facing lay flatter, and help the straps be secure. And that's all, that's the tote. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck sewing.